We welcome you to our next session, special COVID-19 eco session number 46. We are glad that you are still keeping safe, and we are excited that you have spared some time to be with us today. My name is Mashate Silva. I'm a program manager for the SARS-CoV-2 response project at ASLM, and I'll be your host for this session. So in this session, we'll be hosting, our colleagues will be sharing their latest innovations. And as we are aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the world, and there are all sorts of options trying to curb this pandemic. And according to the World Health Organization, one of the basic tools that we can use to fight this pandemic is through diagnostics. And we need to make these diagnostics more available, cheap to perform, and accessible to our communities. So today we are privileged to host our colleagues from the Global Access Diagnostics, who will be sharing with us the latest innovation that they have, introducing COVIOS. COVIOS is a new low-cost, high-quality COVID antigen diagnostic platform that has been developed, and we would like to learn more and hear from them what this kit is all about. User logistics for these sessions, we request you to be able to use the chat platform to send in your questions, your clarifications, and more contributions during the call throughout this session. This is going to be a 1-hour long session, and also would like to highlight to our colleagues, we have the option for interpretation to French. Please use the available functions and interpretations using the tools on the Zoom platform. So we'll be calling upon the presenters from the Global Access Diagnostics, and we have two presenters. Presenter number one is Mark Radford. Mark Radford is the Executive Director of Global Access Diagnostics, and he'll co-present with Dr. Emily Adams. Dr. Emily Adams is the Director of Epidemics and Neglected Diseases at Demologic and Global Access Diagnostics. So please feel free, relax, and then we shall listen in to the presenter from the Global Access Diagnostics. So please, we welcome Mark Radford and Dr. Emily Adams to please go ahead and share your presentation. Mark and Dr. Emily, you are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silva. Emily, do you want to start the slides? Thank you. So, as Silva said, we're here today to talk to you a little bit about the COVIOS antigen rapid test for COVID-19, which has been developed by our group, but also to talk to you about a new type of platform that we have tried to develop. Next slide, please, Emily. So we'll start off by telling you a little bit about the company itself, which is trying to do things very differently from a lot of companies, or from companies in the commercial sector in this space. And we'll go into some of the reasons why we think it's important to do that. After that, we'll talk to you about the COVIOS antigen product itself and give you a little bit of a description of what it is, how it performs, etc. And Emily will then take you into the clinical studies and performance, give you some of the data that you might be interested in seeing on that. We'll talk a little bit about the regulatory status, and then about the product pipeline that we have coming up after this, because it's important to note that Global Access Diagnostics isn't just a platform that is here for COVID alone. It's the beginning of a platform that will try and do things differently for the longer term, and really very much focused on epidemics and neglected diseases, and very much focused on the needs of ELMIC countries. Next, please, Emily. So we'll start with the company introduction. And first of all, just to say that COVID-19, I think, has exposed for all of us the difficulties that lower and middle income countries face when it comes to getting supplies at a time when demand is high, and supply is limited. So a time like a pandemic like now, we all know that, you know, in such instances, even if donor dollars are available, sometimes countries unfortunately get left at the back of the queue. And that's because, you know, there are other countries that are politically perhaps more seen as more important by manufacturers, or they have more finances available. So we were essentially founded to try and find a solution to that problem, to try and see whether we could put the needs of LMIC countries first for once, as it should be. So what is Global Access Diagnostics? Well, I should say, first of all, it's a social enterprise. So it's not a commercial company. And it was spun out of Mologic in 2020, Mologic being one of the established innovators in the space, in diagnostics. And I apologize, Emily, I can't see the screen anymore. Can you go back, please? So we were founded, as I say, last year as a social enterprise, and our main focus is really on building access to affordable diagnostics and to relevant diagnostics to LMICs, making sure that, you know, quality comes first, relevance to the needs of LMICs comes first, and affordability and access comes first. Things that sometimes the commercial companies don't put first. So we were funded initially through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Foundation for Innovative New Diagnostics, and also by the Soros Economic Development Fund and by the UK government. I should say that we've had a development as of 3 weeks ago where many of the funding partners who helped to develop Global Access Diagnostics as a concept in the first place also joined with us to buy Mologic, the company that we had spun out of, the R&D diagnostics company, and that company has now been bought by those philanthropies. It's been placed under a new charity called the Global Access Health, and Global Access Health now also owns Global Access Diagnostics. So we're all under this charitable umbrella together now, and all committed to this global health mission. So what do we do? How do we operate? Well, one of the important things of how we operate is we reinvest all of our profits that we generate in the business straight back into the service of our global health mission. So as a charity, we don't have shareholders. All the money that we make goes straight into investing in global health as part of what we're trying to do. As part of our agreements, we're also granted perpetual royalty-free access to the intellectual property that Mologic generates. That's the R&D company that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And they are improving, you know, new platforms or improved platforms for rapid diagnostics. And they are very committed to this mission of neglected and endemic and epidemic infections. In fact, there's a whole laboratory within Mologic, which for a number of years now has been dedicated to developing both the platform and to developing neglected disease and epidemic disease tests. So, as I mentioned, we set up about a year and a half ago in early 2020. We're now expanding our capacity here in the UK to make around 200 million tests a year by the end of this year. So we're just in the process of building up those facilities, scaling them up as we speak. But that's not all we want to do, because we also believe that ultimately there is no reason why LMICs in the long term should be buying their tests from countries like the UK. They should be made in the region. And so we're working hard with a number of partners in a number of countries towards catalyzing, supporting, facilitating the development of manufacturing hubs for rapid diagnostics in a number of countries around the LMIC regions. At the moment, some of you may be familiar with an organization called Diagnostic, a company called Diagnostic in Senegal, which has had a relationship with Mologic for a number of years. Now, we are supporting an expanded capacity to be developed there. We're working in Pakistan, which I know is not in the in your region, but we're also working in sub-Saharan Africa at the moment. We're in active discussions with Botswana, with Nigeria, with Kenya, and with other one or two other countries. Now, we can't put manufacturing capacity in every country. It would not be sustainable, but we're working with partners in the various regions to see what can be sustained and developed. And as I mentioned, these will be platforms that are entirely locally owned, rather than owned by ourselves, and we will be supporting them as part of a community of action. We will help with supply chain, we will help with developing the plans from the start. We will help with channeling technical know-how and intellectual property to those partners, because we do believe that ultimately the manufacture of rapid diagnostics should be closer to the place where they're needed. And there's many different reasons to do that. One is responsiveness. Another one is to ensure that the donor dollars that often pay for these diagnostics also help to leverage the economy locally, and lots of different reasons why that is the right thing to do. So the further thing I wanted to say is that we're a developer agnostic manufacturing platform. So I mentioned at the start that we work very closely with Mologic under this one charity umbrella, but we also want to make ourselves available to developers of other good tests that are relevant to LMIC needs and that we can make more affordable for those LMICs. Why would anybody give us a test to come on this platform? Well, we hope that we can convince them that, they can, if we're being cynical, they can maybe do something that looks good in their impact statements to their shareholders and does some good in the community at the same time, without them having the opportunity cost of having to do it themselves. In other words, we will do it for them. So that is really the ethos behind what we're trying to do. And as part of this, we're looking to become an active partner to the donor community and to the governments of the LMICs, to the governments in sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere, to understand and to help address really where the gaps are, where the system currently isn't working properly for those countries that we're interested in working with. So next slide, please, Emily. So let me give you a little bit of the history of where we've come from. So in 1988, I can't see any of you, so I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, but the first real commercial iteration of lateral flow was a pregnancy test, the Clearblue pregnancy test that came up in the late 80s. So essentially, a guy called Paul Davis, Professor Paul Davis, was one of the three inventors of that Clearblue pregnancy test. And he, in 2003, with his son Mark, became the founder of Mologic, which is the R&D company I mentioned previously. So it's a company that has a lot of long, deep, broad understanding of lateral flow diagnostics. Okay. Now in 2016, when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were looking for a partner to help them develop the lateral flow platform more and to help them broaden it in terms of its uses within neglected and epidemic diseases, they turned for Mologic precisely because Mologic had that experience and long expertise in the sector. Now, that meant that Mologic became very involved. The laboratory called CARD, the Center for Advanced Rapid Diagnostics, was established within Mologic in 2016. And that laboratory has been ever since working on this mission of improving the platform itself and also developing a pipeline of tests relevant to epidemic and neglected diseases. Now, the problem with Mologic, as it was at the time, being a commercial company, was that when they came to say to their shareholders or their board members that they had this pipeline and they would like to start making it for the lower income settings, of course, the board, the shareholders, they're not that interested in a product that doesn't make a good revenue for the company. So because of that difficulty, that was when we decided that we needed to invest in another model, a model that could really prioritize need before prioritizing product. And that's how Global Access Diagnostics was born, as a social enterprise, legally separate from Mologic and funded by the philanthropists I mentioned before, really to be able to start putting that pipeline of tests out to where they could do some good. Okay, so we're now in 2021, and as I mentioned earlier, Mologic has also been bought by the same funders that initially funded our project, and we're now back together once again under this new umbrella. So what that has done, it means that that whole laboratory, which is providing a very valuable pipeline of tests to us going forward, is now sort of in perpetuity in the service of global health on a not-for-profit basis. Okay, next slide, please. So what differentiates us? And I've said a little bit of this before, but the first thing is, unlike other companies, we are, first of all, developer agnostic, and secondly, ELMIC focused. So what does that mean? Developer agnostic means that, as I mentioned, we are open to manufacturing lateral flow tests for any test developer, as long as it fulfills our criteria. It is a quality test, it is of relevance to lower income countries, it is going to be made affordable through our platform. So those are the three things that are important to us. Beyond that, we will make anybody's test, because we believe that that is the right thing to do to get those tests to where they are needed. And we're ELMIC focused in the sense that everything that we're doing really is about trying to ensure a steady supply of good tests to lower and middle income countries. So another difference perhaps is that we're committed to transparent pricing. So we have a pledge, which is part of the sort of global access approach to things, which is we want to be transparent on our pricing. The way we price our products is really on a COGS plus basis, meaning it's the cost of goods, it's what it costs us to make things, and plus we add a very small margin on top of that, which is transparent, which helps us obviously for sustainability and a little bit of growth to invest in other projects, but it's not about maximizing profit. So just to give you an example of this on the COVIOS test, which I will be talking to you about shortly, it is a test which in performance is similar to the SD biosensor, the Abbott, etc. We're offering it at the moment at $2 if you come to us directly on that, $2 ex works. And we hope over time, if we're able to increase the volumes that we manufacture, that we can bring those prices down, because as our costs go down, automatically the pricing goes down as well on that. I mentioned already that we support distributed manufacture, which means that we're working with partners in many countries, I've mentioned some of them, to really shift that center of gravity for diagnostic test manufacture from us to the regions where these tests are going to be used primarily. Okay, and the fourth thing is that we believe in innovation. Now, in terms of the needs of lower income settings, innovation, I don't think has served many countries well. And there is a need really to, again, turn that around and start looking at how innovation can help more in these settings. And the reason it hasn't served these settings well is frankly, the profit incentive hasn't been there for the commercial players to do anything about it. So, we're talking not just about innovation in the science, which I mentioned, about the platform itself and about the breadth of different tests, but I'm also talking about areas such as the technology that you need to use to make tests. Well, are there ways to make that technology better in order to put that to be able to put that technology perhaps in more challenging settings? Is there a way to change the materials that we make tests from to make them more eco-appropriate? You know, none of us want to see hundreds of millions or billions of pieces of single-use plastic incinerated or thrown by the side of the road. There's a better way that we can hopefully do that going forward. Also, can we make these tests give more value to different stages of the stakeholder chain when they're out in use? So we're looking at things like, if you enable them with data and align them to apps, how can you use them better? How can you use them in a way that will help disease surveillance programs? How can you use them in a way that might, through linking them to mobile wallet technology, might help to nudge behaviors, or might encourage new modes of access and things like that? So we're really looking at different ideas with different partners about how we can innovate. And a lot of these ideas come to us from members of our own board and other members of our network, actually, who, you know, themselves have been handpicked and chosen as really thought leaders in global health from sub-Saharan Africa, from Asia, and from Latin America. So, you know, if you were to see the members of our board, I'm sure you would recognize a number of the names. They are people with who are practitioners of global health from a number of the countries that we are working with. And that's part of what we want to do. We want to be driven by the priorities and voices from those countries, because, you know, it is you who understand your needs a lot better than we understand them. And that is really, you know, the way we want to work going forward. Next slide, please. So let's just look at the main reason for today's presentation, which is our rapid antigen test. We all know that the COVID pandemic is not going away at the moment, unfortunately. We also all know that vaccination rates in sub-Saharan Africa have been disappointing in many or most countries to date. So as a result of that, I think we can all agree that testing is going to remain an important part of strategy in most countries over the foreseeable future. And as part of that, you know, there's the PCR testing, which is wonderful, but it has its obvious drawbacks in terms of, again, supply chain difficulties and in terms of reach in many countries and the logistics of it. So inevitably, rapid testing becomes an important part of that strategy now and going forward. And what we wanted to do is show you a product that we have started manufacturing, which was developed by Mologic, and which we are in the process now of launching across many different ELMIC countries, many of them in sub-Saharan Africa at the moment, in a joint partnership with the Gates Foundation and with CHAI, with the Clinton Health Access Initiative. Next slide, please. So this is the product, COVIOS Ag, COVIOS Antigen, and really just to give you a very brief overview of it, it's a 10-minute lateral flow test. It uses anterior nasal swab, so it's just from the front of the nose. It's currently got 18 months of shelf life on it, but within the next month or so, we expect it to go up to 24 months. And, you know, as you can see from here, the limit of detection is 2.5 times 10 to the 2, and sensitivity of 90.6 and specificity of 100%. Now, these are figures that have come not from us. They have come from independent evaluations of the test by FIND and by a number of other laboratories around the world, including a number of validations are being done on this test in various laboratories across sub-Saharan Africa. Next, please. So this is just an illustration of the instructions for use for this test, just to show you how it works really, and I'm sure people may have some questions later. Very happy to answer them. But essentially, as it shows you, it's a very simple. You have a swab which you put in the two nostrils 5 or 6 times. You put them in the pre-filled buffer tube. You then sort of pull the tube out, and it's 5 drops onto the test, and it gives you a result within 10 minutes. Okay, so I'll hand over here at this stage to my colleague Emily, who will take you through some of the data and some of the other issues that we wanted to cover.
Thanks so much, Mark, and a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. So I'm just going to take you through the clinical studies and performance. My name's Emily Adams. I'm the Director of Epidemics and Neglected Tropical Disease at Mologic, and of course we're working really closely with GAD to ensure that the clinical studies and performance are facilitated. So we have this test under evaluation in many different countries around the world. We originally started with our own validations in the UK to be confident of the test. We then sent the test to FIND, who have now performed a large study, actually their largest study in Germany, and in Claudia Denkinger's group. And it's now being actively evaluated in Peru under the FIND umbrella. We've also initiated several other evaluations and verifications with different partners. These are the ones that have been funded by our original Wellcome Trust funding. So in Senegal, Nigeria, and BMGF are supporting South Africa and Mozambique. And in East Asia, we have a study that just started this week in Indonesia and in Malaysia. And then we also have studies in the US, which are towards our FDA submission. So a huge number of partners have already initiated studies, and we hope that more will join this list. Here is the data. So the COVIOS test at the bottom, highlighted in pink, against the other WHO EUL approved lateral flow tests. So I think you can see from this data fairly quickly, it demonstrates comparable performance to those market leaders. So if we look at Abbott, where this overall sensitivity is 86%, and SD Biosensor, which is the other very commonly used test at sort of between 80 and 85% sensitivity. Our test here at the bottom is above 90% sensitive, and in comparison to the Premier test there. So we're really pleased with this data. The confidence intervals between 86 and 94% are pretty tight there. So that's really fantastic. If you look at the different thresholds, if you look under CT33, performing really well, more than 92% sensitive there. Again, part of the market leaders. And CTs under 25, again, thereabouts at 96.5%. So this data has given us enormous confidence in the test. Here is the FIND independent evaluation in Germany in a little bit more detail with the 2x2 table. So in the whole of the study, there are 191 events or positive cases by RT-qPCR, of which the COVIOS test was able to pick up 173 of them, which is pretty remarkable. And these people are a combination of participants presenting with symptoms, so with sore throat, anosmia, chesty cough, etc. And they were also asymptomatics, so contacts of cases were actively sought in this evaluation. So it's between the symptomatics and the non-symptomatics. So it's a collection of presentations. So the sensitivity there, more than 90%. The specificity 100%, so there were 458 negative by qPCR, all of which were also negative by the COVIOS test. Again, a little bit of stratification by CT value. The CT under 20, we pick up 100% of infections, and that goes up as the CT values increase as well. If we look at our analytical data performed at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, on behalf of FIND is 2.5 times 10 to the 2 PFU per mil. We've also looked at a number of the different variants, including alpha, beta, gamma, and delta, and the LODs are similar, as you would expect, because this antigen test detects nuclear protein, which is fairly conserved across all of those different variants. So again, part of the market leaders also have a sensitivity of approximately the same. Regulatory status. So the test was CE marked in December 2020 and went through the UK systems back then. We have submitted for WHO EUL approval, and that was submitted in May 2021. We've recently gone through a series of queries which were submitted in August, and so we're waiting for our response to WHO on any further queries and then the outcome. We also submitted to FDA for EUA clearance in June 2021 after RADx funding in April. So that's also awaiting approval and awaiting query. So we're just in that waiting phase at the moment. A little bit frustrating, but we know these things take time, especially over the summer. We have, as I said, initiated a number of in-country validations and verifications, and these have been sort of our priority countries. And you can see a really long list of really fabulous collaborators helping us with these validations. We're also working up a list of distributors so that we can get this once all the approvals are in place, the validations and the registrations, then we will be very quick to be able to distribute the test. And so, as Mark said, our product, the GAD product pipeline and Malogic's pipeline itself is far wider than COVIOS, than COVID itself and the COVIOS test. So I just thought I would very briefly go over that wider pipeline for interest, and happy to take questions on this afterwards. But really, this is our priority now as a not-for-profit company under the umbrella of Global Access Health, that we hope to be able to take through to regulatory approval. They're all at different stages. As you can see here, that the ones that we've launched are obviously the antigen test and just a couple of others. But this list here of those that are undertaking clinical validation, regulatory approvals, and technology transfer. Amongst them are yellow fever, which is really very close to entering sort of wide-scale clinical evaluations and very much linked in with WHO and GAVI. Going to be we're very confident this is going to be a good antigen test as well, the same format, a lateral flow. We're getting data back every day about our dengue, NS1 and IgM, IgG tests, combined test. We have a measles test and rubella, which actually came from Public Health England through a collaboration with David Brown, who wanted to see these into validation, approvals, launch and distribution. And so that's a really fabulous collaboration. And so we have this wider NTD portfolio as well, including schistosomiasis, funded by GHIT and BMGF. Malaria, which we think will be a hugely impactful product if we're able to get it down to the costs and the scale of manufacture that are required, and we're really confident of that in the next sort of 6 to 12 months of being available for launch. We have a sepsis biomarker panel, which works by sort of machine learning of a panel of at the moment 6 biomarkers, which is really exciting. And we are undertaking evaluations for that in the UK, but looking to extend those further afield. We also have our Ebola test, again in technology transfer with Diatropics, as is yellow fever. And then for one step back in the feasibility area, we've got onchocerciasis, which is moving really rapidly through the pipeline because of a very strong collaboration with FIND and BMGF and Core NTD. So we're preparing for core NTD evaluations at the moment on prototype tests. We've got HIV P24. We're looking at early infant diagnosis in Uganda in the next 3 to 6 months. And we have a TB LAM collaboration as well with FIND, where we're looking at internationally all of the TB LAM antibodies and looking to move them into prototype devices in the next year. So this is a really exciting and rich portfolio. We really, our first product that we wanted to speak to you about was our COVIOS test, but we hope to be able to speak to you at length in due course about some of these other diagnostics that we are looking to move forward in this pipeline. So I'll hand back to Mark on that note.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. And just to say we're happy to take questions right now. Otherwise, if you haven't got any questions now, but if you think of any after this meeting is finished, the info@globalaccessdiagnostics.com. That's where you can contact us on, and we'll be very happy to answer any points there as well. So I noticed that a number of questions have come up in the chat over time, so I will ask the meeting facilitators how they would like to proceed from here.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Radford, and thank you so much, Dr. Emily, for this detailed presentation regarding these new innovations. So from the presentations, we learned that you have particular areas that you are focusing on, especially for the low-income countries, to ensure that these diagnostics are available, are relevant, they are reliable, they are affordable, and I think this is the way to go to curb this, this pandemic. And you're also going ahead to indicate that there are other products in the pipeline, and I think that's excellent because besides COVID, there are many other conditions out there that are ravaging the communities. So, colleagues, for those who still have questions, clarifications, feel free to use our chat platform to send in your comments. But to Radford and Emily, there are a couple of questions that have come up in the chat box, and we'll read some of these to you verbally such that you're able to respond to them. So the first question that has come in from Arani Pirao, and he says, this is a very exciting initiative, and this question is, do you think you and all the local manufacturers, when established, will be able to also provide tests for NTDs where the market is too small in principle to be profitable? Then maybe I'll ask another one such that you answer both of them at a go. From Abayoni Abbas, who is asking, thanks for this low middle income focused innovation. What other disease areas do you have in your product pipeline that African countries can benefit from in terms of? And I think that was highlighted towards the end of the discussion. Then the other question is from Kazaf Mohammed. Did the product get World Health Organization approval? That's one of the questions from
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one?
Respond that for now, and then we bring in more questions. Thank you. Back to you, Radford.
Thank you, Silva. Could you just repeat that last question, because I didn't quite get that one?
So the last question is about, did the product get World Health Organization approval? That is from
World Health Organization approval. Okay, thank you. So let me start with that one first. As Emily mentioned, it is currently within the process with the World Health Organization. It has been with the World Health Organization since the end of May. These things take time to go through, so it isn't fully through the process yet. It is progressing through there, and we're well aware of the fact that that is, in some countries at the moment, that is a challenge, because some countries do require WHO approval before they can start to use the test. So currently it is CE marked. Currently it is within the WHO process, and it is within the US FDA process. We hope that those processes will be completed within weeks. And currently it is starting to undergo validation in a number of different ELMIC countries within their own validation processes. There was a list that Emily put up. Some of those have started, some of those are about to start, or we're in process of negotiating the start of that. It's also important to say, though, that there have been, the product has been subject to the largest evaluation by FIND of any of the products that FIND has evaluated, and FIND obviously being the evaluation partner of WHO. So the quick answer is no, it's not through WHO EUL yet, but we expect it to be through that within the next few weeks, which is why we thought it would be opportune to start talking to you about it just now. In terms of other tests that are in the pipeline at the moment, Emily did mention some of those in her last slide. So I don't know if there's anything more that we need to say on those. And in terms of NTDs, I mean, NTDs really are, part of why we're here. So we have tests that are, at various stages of development of the process, but also as I mentioned earlier, we want to be driven by the priorities of the people who are going to be needing these tests and using these tests. So given that our focus is very much on neglected tropical and epidemic diseases, we want to know from people, okay, what are the priorities that are currently not being adequately met? And if we are in a position to meet those, that is part of the objective that we have as an organization. So it helps us to really focus our sort of next areas that we start to work on, that we start to develop.
Yeah, just to add to that, I've popped back that slide back up there. And I think it's important to note also that GAD are agnostic of Mologic, so they will be able to pick up diagnostic tests that others are making who can't find a market for their test. So one of the questions on the chat relates to leishmaniasis and the RK39 test. That's a test by Biorab that is going to be discontinued in 2022, I believe, and those notices have been sent out. We are in discussions, and we are hopeful that that's the sort of test that we might be able to sort of take on in the future. So no guarantees at the moment, but it's very much on our radar. And if there are other tests like that you consider would be extremely important for us to either develop as Mologic or manufacture as GAD, then we would really welcome that feedback.
So thank you so much for that. There are more questions that have come in from the participants. And there's a comment from Wambale who says, I think it's a question, it's not clear, but it says the test is easy to use like standard Q, ST Bioline. I think it's a comment or a clarification, maybe you comment on that. There's this important one from Jonas Malin. And this again, I think to both of you, one of you should be able to respond to this. Very important innovation. Can an individual directly order from your company? And if yes, how? That is from Jonas. Let's also give you another one from Tom Sange, who was asking if any study has been done in East Africa. But there's this one from Aboyomi Abbas. Aboyomi Abbas is asking, what is the storage temperature requirements for this kit, considering that most countries in Africa are in the tropics? And there's another comment where if there are any plans for brucellosis, I think you have commented on that. There's also this one, I think Emily can comment on this one. And the question is, dear panelists, if there is evaluation test in Ethiopia, our laboratory, that is Haregi Health Research Lab, is happy to participate. So please comment on this if you are able to provide the kits to this facility to be able to actually go ahead and conduct the assessment. And another one from Kezaf Mohammed is asking, what is the price per test? So maybe for now we respond to that, and then we shall bring in more comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay. Emily, do you want me to start, or do you... Okay, I'll start from the bottom up. So with the price for tests, as I mentioned on the COVIOS test, right now we are offering that at $2 a test, ex-works from our site here. Naturally, when we are working, or we are going to be working with a number of distributors in various countries as well. So if people are buying them through those distributors, then we are working with the distributors to try and ensure that they keep their margins as low as possible, because we're conscious of the fact that our mission is to make these as affordable as possible. But I can't comment on the ultimate price in different countries that those distributors will offer them for. But if they're bought from us directly, they are $2. Okay. In terms of Ethiopia, I'll let Emily comment further, but I would say that the validations as such, the main validations we would want to do in collaboration, in cooperation with the ministries of health of the different countries and their requirements for the reference labs that they would want to use for those validations. But over and above those, it's a case of there are other studies that happen that are funded by other bodies as well. Is there anything you would add to that, Emily?
Yeah, so we'd be very happy to hear from other sites who are well linked in with the MOH that can help facilitate those V&V studies to get the tests into procurement by MOH. And also, if you have an academic interest, then we'd be very happy to hear from you about studies that you would like to lead.
Okay, thanks. In terms of storage, and Abayomi's comment on that, as with a lot of these products, the recommended storage is 2 to 30 degrees. Having said that, our stability studies, we do take stability studies into the 40s and even into the 50s, but it's not recommended that people store at those temperatures. But it is possible to show stability for short periods of time at those temperatures, or shorter periods of time overall. But really the recommended storage is always 2 to 30 on them. In terms of have we done any validation studies in East Africa? At the moment, I'm looking at Emily on the screen, but I don't think we have to date. We are planning one with Kemri as we speak, and that's going to be part of the validation of the test for Kenya. But I don't think currently we have any others on the cards at this time. In terms of how you can order, as I mentioned, we will be working with distributors in many different countries over time. We're in the process of really signing agreements with different distributors, and we will make those known over time as we do that. In the meantime, if anybody has an interest specifically, I would suggest that you write to us at that info@globalaccessdiagnostics.com, and we'll see whether we're able to help you through that. And the final question there was about whether it's whether this test is the same as the standard Q in terms of use. As I mentioned earlier, it's an anterior nasal, so front of the nostril swab that you need to take sort of 5 or 6 times in each nostril, and then into the buffer tube. So it's one of the simpler tests to use, let's put it this way, and one of the less invasive ones as well.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, just on that standard Q issue. So it takes, I think, 5 minutes less than standard Q. The COVIOS test uses nasal samples, and the evaluation data through FINE has been slightly better with COVIOS, but in principle, they work in a similar manner. Sorry, Silva, to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's a good clarification that you have added on. More comments have come in, and there's one particular one on issues to do with quality. Many colleagues on this platform are actually laboratory scientists, and one of the issues that comes up is usually the issue of quality control. So there's a question here from Abebo Kibede, and is asking, does this kit contain the positive and negative controls? And they had asked about the post-part test, and I think you have highlighted on that. And then the next question is, you talked about the Trichomoniasis rapid diagnostic test. Is the sample to be used urine or serum? Please respond to those two. Thank you.
Should I quickly do the schistosomiasis test then? That is a CA8 RDT for use in serum. So at the moment, all the RDTs are used in urine, but this one will be a catch-all schistosoma hematobium mansoni japonicum in the finger prick blood and all serum.
Okay, so that's good. And there was also another comment that came in from somebody called Adeboye, and is asking, do you have a distributor in Nigeria for this kit? Maybe you just have to re-highlight on this and clarify that there's somebody from Nigeria asking if you have a distributor in Nigeria. Maybe Radford, you could further clarify this so that it's more clear to the colleagues regarding the distribution.
Of course, and just before I do that, the other question, which was about positive and negative controls. Emily, do you want to answer that?
So at the moment, we don't have positive and negative controls included within each box because there are 25 kits there, and so we think that, you know, for mass distribution, then that's not necessary. It is a question that comes up quite a lot, and it's not something that we are providing at the moment, but others such as FIND and the UK NECWAS, which is the quality standards group. They have standards for the qPCRs and some of the antibody tests, and the antigen test is something that they are considering at the moment, but it's quite difficult to produce those.
Okay, thanks. In terms of Nigeria, yes, we are currently talking to a distributor in Nigeria who actually is a not-for-profit company working there with a lot of experience in the country. And we're also working very closely with, not as a distributor, but as a partner here with the Nigeria CDC at the moment, in terms of moving this test forward towards use within the country going forward.
All right, thank you. We are getting to the top of the hour. We have less than 10 minutes to go, but there are some more questions that have come in, and I think this is very exciting that colleagues would like to get more information. There's a particular question that has come in from Job Achidri, and Job Achidri is appreciating that. Thank you for the presentation and the progress so far made on the COVID RDT, but is asking for you to provide more details, especially pertaining to any accessories, for example, swabs. Are these included in the kit? What additional possibly accessories need to be provided, or those that come along with the kit? Then the other comment that has come in is from Asumpricio, and this question is, evaluations were done on asymptomatic patients. Have you done evaluation studies on asymptomatic patients? And if not, why is it supposed to be used on asymptomatic patients according to the intended use in the table? So I hope you get that clear. Is asking.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily, you start with the second.
Sure. So all of the accessories are included in the kit. So the swabs are there. So there's no need to worry about that. It's all included in that $2 pricing point. The asymptomatic study was performed by FIND, and they used contacts of patients. So it's not sort of truly asymptomatic, not sort of community asymptomatic testing, but more sort of contacts of cases, which is a very good way and quick and easy way to use the antigen tests. And so the data there is included, is combined with the symptomatic data from FIND, which shows that the test is 90.6% sensitive, so very high sensitivity and high specificity of 100% in that evaluation. the symptomatic and asymptomatic parts are not split out in that evaluation, but you can find that data on the FIND website if you're interested. Our claim is for symptomatics and contacts as opposed to sort of true asymptomatic detection, if that answers that question.
All right, thank you. There is a question that has come in from a colleague. It's in French, and we hope we will be able to interpret it very well. It's from somebody, Veronique. And among the questions that has been asked is, may you please mention some of the limitations of this test? Because that's a question from the participant. What are some of the limitations of this test that you have come across through the verification and the validations that are taking place?
Very interesting question.
Yeah. So I assume that was limit of detection. So I had prepared an analytical sensitivity answer, which is 2.5 times 10 to the 2 PFU per mil. The limits of the test, actually, you know, we're really pleased with it. To be able to identify 90% of patients within just 10 minutes is really a game changer for me. The limits are that you won't identify every patient, as with any antigen test. And so if someone is still a suspect, then they probably would need a PCR test after that. But actually the accuracy data is really excellent, and we're very confident in the test.
Right. Thank you so much. And I think this is very exciting. We have had so many questions and clarifications from the participants. And we just have 4 minutes to the top of the hour, and we need to use our time properly such that people are able to get engaged in other activities. But we would like to clarify that there are colleagues who have asked for the presentation. We would like to say that this presentation is going to be available on the ASLM website. Please visit the website. The presentation, the recording, including the presentation PowerPoint, will be there. You will have access to it. The other thing is, please, in case you have any more questions, please keep them coming, and remember to take our end of the session polls. So at this time, in the remaining few minutes, we would like to ask Radford and Emily, starting with Radford. Please, may you provide with us a parting shot for the team and the members who have participated in this. Then after that, we shall hear from Emily. Parting shot, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Silver. I mean, for me, just to say, it's a pleasure to be able to, you know, speak to this group and get so many interesting questions from you. As I said at the very beginning, what we are about, what we aim to do, is to try and shift that center of gravity in the conversation more towards the needs of lower income settings. And so any feedback that we get from yourselves is always valuable. It's helpful towards making us do the job better and to keep us on our toes. So, you know, very many thanks from me to all of you for participating today, and I hope we can keep this conversation going.
Yes, thank you so much for attending this afternoon, because I know everyone is hugely time limited. We were really excited to present the COVIOS test to everyone and hear of your fantastic feedback and questions. Please keep them rolling in. And also your interest in the wider portfolio. I saw questions there on leptospirosis, leishmaniasis, schisto, tuberculosis. So we really hope that we can, as Mark says, keep the conversation going and speak to you further about this very rich portfolio, and any feedback that you can give us would be really valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radford. Thank you so much, Emily. And colleagues, like we usually do, please remember to download your certificate. There's information on your screen how to download your certificate. We are remaining with only 2 minutes then the top of the hour. At this time, we would like to thank and appreciate all our partners who make these eco sessions possible. We would like to thank the team from Global Access Diagnostics who have made this presentation possible. And without forgetting you, the participants who have saved your time to come and attend this presentation. Without you, this session would be in vain. We would like to thank the support from Africa CDC and all the team members from ASLM. We would like to wish you a nice day, and please stay safe as this pandemic is still ravaging communities. Please stay safe such that we meet again. Please keep checking your inbox for our next session number 47 that will be coming, and please you again invited to attend. So thank you so much for your time. Stay safe and bye-bye for now until we meet during our next session. Thank you so much.